why would I or why did they or anyone ever invest in quantum expeditions?
Yeah, people want to make money. That's why they invest, of course.
So beyond Bitcoin mining, do you plan to do any altcoin mining?
And I'm not gonna certainly not gonna name any names that we've had opportunities on the table.
What do you think about the future of Bitcoin mining hardware?
Bitmain and those that are creating these. I mean, they can produce more efficiency, but why would they want to?
So kind of like in your Bitcoin mining endeavor, right? Like what has been the most challenging thing that you've run into? Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the VoskCoin YouTube channel. Today, we're going to be digging deeper into Bitcoin mining. I've got two experts with me here from Quantum Expeditions. Maddie, Doug, could you guys introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit more about you and what you do?
My name is Doug Hartwick. I'm the CEO of Quantum Expeditions, and I'm based in Dallas, Texas.
My name is Matti Greenspan. I'm the Chief Financial Officer of Quantum Expeditions. I also have a research and advisory company called Quantum Economics, which is where Quantum Expeditions originated. I was a senior market analyst in eToro for 7.5 years and a licensed portfolio manager in the European Union.
So today we want to dig deeper into Bitcoin mining, and a key thing that Doug and Maddie are doing is they're building quantum expeditions, and the core of that is Bitcoin mining. And one thing I want to talk about is how are you building a profitable Bitcoin mining business here in 2024 as we approach 2025? When say like just for today, for example, Bitcoin has become more difficult than ever historically for mining.
You know, the one word is energy. How do you become profitable is energy. Keep your energy costs low. Because that right there is what, 90% of your expenses in a mining company?
Yeah, energy. And I would add to that Bitcoin mining really harkens to the building blocks of what makes us human, right? It's always, as a human being, there's always this constant search for something else, something greater, something next, like the next thing, the next connection, the next paycheck, the next adventure, whatever it is. And Bitcoin mining is really taps into that in a big way because you don't get to a point ever in Bitcoin mining where you go, okay, well, we built the empire. Let's relax now and sit down and watch the show or something like that. But actually, there's always a constant search for a lower energy price, more efficient machinery, better talent to deploy. So it really is. It's like being human in a way.
And so, Maddie, let's talk about that. What kind of mining gear do you have deployed right now?
So we purchased 144 S19 K Pros just at the tail end of last year, just before Bitcoin popped $35,000 again. If you remember that interesting period of time, that was actually the very lowest point that those miners were in history. So we actually nabbed the bottom of the market on that one and have gained from some appreciation on the machines at least. And then with the help of the crowd fund, we purchased an additional 44 S21s over the last few months. Those were basically in batches. So we've got 188 machines at the moment, totaling approximately 25 petahash.
And do you have any more miners on order or plan to order any additional hardware soon?
We do. However, we have a bit of a bigger goal in sight right now. Doug found gas. We struck gas in West Texas. Trap gas, the kind where the people who are producing it actually they're looking for crude oil, and that gas is getting in their way. So for us, I mean, it's an extremely cheap energy source and going to cut our power costs by about 70 to 80%, I would say, putting the rest of that money, into our pockets and the pockets of our investors. So that is our main focus at the moment. After that, we can start, expanding the fleet again.
And can you share what is your current cost, like per kilowatt hour for mining?
We don't have we don't. That's not something that we're sharing at the moment as a private company. I would say that it is enough to keep us profitable, but it's not enough to make huge amounts of profits, paying dividends and stuff like that. So that's going to have to wait until we get the gas site plugged in.
And so you mentioned a gas site, right? So are you saying that you're going to basically burn their gas on site, or utilize their gas on site to create an energy source for your Bitcoin miners, because they have to either pay to harness that, or pay the fees to vent it, right? Where can, like, if I don't know anything, can you explain what does it mean that you struck gas and that's beneficial for you as a Bitcoin miner? Because I thought these ran on electricity. I didn't know they had gas powered models, Maddie. So it's kind of like the reverse of electric vehicles.
So I come from the oil and gas industry. Matter of fact, I'm still in the oil and gas industry, but and that's what really brought me to the quantum team, is to bring power. Uh, and so what we have found is when it comes to natural gas can be, piped into a generator, and the generator runs on natural gas. And so when you have a natural gas powered generator, that's where we get our electricity for our miners. And what's really cool about it is we can lower our infrastructure costs by taking the container to the field where the oil wells, gas wells are, and have it all right there on site. It also eliminates the challenges of being on grid, and but plus it keeps your costs down quite a bit, a whole lot.
And so you mentioned container, right? So did you build your own container, or did you buy a pre-built solution? What are you using for that?
Yeah, so far we've been buying pre-built, where it's already, so it's like a plug and play. We just take our miners and plug them in.
Which
So
one did
that's
you
where
go
we've
with?
been. Pardon?
Which pre-built container did you go
We haven't made that decision just yet. We're looking into a few different
with?
options for
Okay.
the gas site. At the moment, we are hosted elsewhere. We did that because we wanted to get deployed, and we had a blowout first quarter, of course, before the halving, because we were hosted, and because we started at the beginning of the quarter, and we went right through the halving. So um, yeah, and now that the halving has come into effect, I mean, it has affected our profitability, such that, like, again, we are profitable now, but we want to go ahead and seek those much larger profits that we can in the gas site. In the gas site, of course, we're at the point right now where the wells are running, and we're looking at putting the paperwork together, and we'll very soon be making a decision on the kind of container and everything like that.
And if you're at liberty to say, like roughly, let's just say like 100 miners, or maybe even 50 or whatever. Like if for some reason I start digging in my backyard, right, and I hit natural gas, like what kind of infrastructure costs are you looking at to pipe this gas into the generator, to get a natural gas generator that's going to be able to operate this much hardware? Because if you bring all of the miners you currently have, I mean, that's like you're running at like about half a megawatt, roughly, of electrical consumption. So that's not a small generator. That's probably not one generator.
Right. So uh, when I was in the Nashville conference this past weekend, there's guys that are, I met a couple of guys running gas, and what we have found is most people don't realize every oil gas well has its own personality. And since you're dealing with Mother Nature, the gas coming out of the ground changes in volume and in content. And so, what most people, I think, the missing piece most people are not thinking about is treating the gas before it goes to the generator. Because if you put dirty gas into that generator, you're going to ruin, a very expensive piece of equipment. And so, there's a lot of things that's involved from, yeah, you've got the gas well. Well, you don't just put gas into a generator and go, which most people think that's what, it's not like a gas station, right? Where you just put gas in your car and drive off.
Okay. And then what do you think the like generate or the gas generator would cost?
With natural gas that comes naturally out of the ground, there is some treatment that needs to be done. And so, that one piece of equipment could cost in the $10,000 to $15,000 range. Plus, you got to, pay the experts to install it and monitor it. And,
We're gonna have our site manager play the mandolin for the gas.
yeah, yeah, yeah. We've got an expert for all those, for all things natural gas and natural gas generator related. We've got experts in the field for that. Well, you know what? There's oddly enough, in my lifetime, back in the 80s and 90s, I was actually in technology. And one of the things I've learned is if you need uptime, then you need duplicate equipment. So, like mirrored servers for, I remember when e-commerce first came out, and I designed a mirrored server for this company, a website company selling jewelry. And so that I think plays into effect what we're doing out in West Texas with natural gas because a generator. So your success is only as good as your weakest link. And so if all your energy is coming from one generator and it's a mechanical piece of equipment, it's going to break down at some point. Do you want to run everything through one generator or do you think maybe you should have two? And so, as a startup company, one of the things that we're looking at, and this goes back to everything about our company isn't just, hey, let's go do this. It was, okay, this is what we want to do. Let's lay plans. We literally planned for 2 years before we started mining. We didn't just start mining. And so, the same way here, I've been in the oil and gas industry for over 20 years, and I know what, having a generator running 24/7 entails because that's what you need to drill an oil well. And so, for, mining, it's the same thing. Now, you're with drilling a well, it's 2 weeks to 4 weeks, but the concept. But so if you're out there running, you've got to have more than one, in my opinion. My concept is if I need a megawatt, I want two 750s. Two generators that can generate about 700, 750 megawatts, or zero point 0.7 megawatts. So if you have two of those, if one of them goes down, you're not 100% down in the container. You're still mining. You can still keep that profitability 24/7 is what we're looking for. That kind of
And,
answer.
and Doug, like, so in this scenario, like, would you plan to run them both at basically, partial capacity, or would you run one for a period and then switch to the other, or would you just run one all the time until that breaks? You're like, okay, here's my fresh one
Run,
right next to it.
run one. No, uh, you know what? In my opinion, it's running both at the same time. So if one goes down, then you just ramp it up instead of starting it up. Makes more sense to me. Now, I'm not, the expert in generators, gensets. So, that's a lot of what our conversation is around with our experts out in the field.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I totally agree with your mindset. Like when I built, this small project compared to what you're doing, but I made my hard drive mining shed, and with that, I used mini splits to cool it, right? And so I only needed one, but my thought process is the lead time to get a mini split out there to work through the install. It's a dirty install, though a dirty, a clean environment. If I need to panic, replace one or put another one in or whatever. So I suffered the initial investment up front, which raised my actual cost on the whole project by like 10-20% in order to have two units there. So if there's ever abnormally hot, like hot weather, I could run both units. I only need one. So what I know I run one, for a month, and then I flip it to the other one, and I just kind of alternate them that way. Just because something like that, I don't really like it to sit too long. But bottom line is, I like where your head's at, and I agree with you because uptime's king, especially in mining, because your hardware is your most expensive investment eventually. So you don't want to cheap out or be too stringent on another front, and then your whole actual important piece of the business just sitting there idle. And of course, it'll
Yeah,
be when
that'll
like
help,
coin
right?
prices are at all time high.
Yeah, and then the ordinals go popping, and then you gotta, you want to take advantage of that seriously. But no, we understand that going off grid means that our battle is going to be around uptime, and we're fine with that. And even if we, have only 80 or 90% uptime, we're still going to be much more profitable than we are with the on grid solution, where, if we're even if we're 100% online, we're still struggling to, to maintain profitability.
I think that's an interesting point too, because your common sense is like if I have the most uptime, I'll have the most profitable business. But if you can astronomically reduce your costs, like you're saying, then if it's a bumpier road, it doesn't matter. And that I think is it reflects upon like a more advanced investing mindset, right? It's like everything about that says like risk versus reward, and taking the path it's going to be more difficult, maybe more involved. There's going to be more problem solving, but it's got the higher upside. And in such a competitive sector like Bitcoin mining, uh, you need an edge, right? You need an edge in any business, ideally, to be a great business. So for you to be pursuing the off-grid natural gas edge in mining, and then it plays into the whole. It's good for the environment aspect too. Uh, it's uh, it's good. It makes a lot of sense to me. I'm gonna start drilling for natural gas.
Hey, I don't know if I drill for it. One of the things because I drilled wells for 15 years, and that's why I'm not. I know a miner that went out and started his own operating company and bought the wells and operating them himself, and that he's running into a lot of challenges. They don't realize uh, how finicky and temperamental oil and gas wells can be. If you don't realize that every well has its own personality, um, when you're operating wells, you're missing a huge, and you don't realize that till you've been in it for years. And you've got to operate that well for years before you really know how that well's going to perform.
See, Doug, you show up with the experience, the wisdom, the logic. It's all sobering. I'm over here laughing, saying I'm gonna go in my backyard and drill a well.
Yeah, there you go.
You're right. Maybe I'm
Yeah,
just
get your
more
solar
suited to have a
panel
solar
and
panel. I'm just more of
wind
a solar
turbine, a little bit
panel
of
guy.
both. Yeah.
I can't handle I
It,
can't
it, it
handle it
took us a
well.
while to get to there too. Don't forget, like we
Yeah,
incorporated November 11th, 2021 was the exact date that Bitcoin hit 69,420 that last time around. Um, so yeah, it's been a long time coming, and
it's beautiful.
yeah, Doug was able to pull it off, and we're very happy, and we're gonna do some great things because there's a lot more where that came from. Now that we're tapped into
Yeah.
that, we're already strategizing on how to achieve more of it, even before we've plugged in the first one.
I like that. So beyond Bitcoin mining, do you plan to do any altcoin mining, or is it clear BTC focus?
Yeah, not at this time. I mean, we've definitely run spreadsheets and calculations as far as that's concerned. And I'm not gonna certainly not gonna name any names that we've had opportunities on the table for several of them. But as far as quantum expeditions is concerned, at this point, we're not big enough to say, okay, well, let's take 10% of our fleet and go to like Doge Litecoin or something or Caspa. But I said I wasn't going to name any names. Damn it. Um,
You,
wow.
you didn't even last 1 minute.
But we're not there yet at this point. We told our investors that we're going to be mining Bitcoin, and that's what we want to and that's what we want to do. So maybe in the future, when we're much bigger, we can make those type of decisions and diversify. But at this point, we have to be fully focused in order to attain some of the goals.
And so I also just want to say, full disclosure, I'm happy and proud to have equity in Quantum Expeditions. So I work with them, and we feature them on the channel amongst some other things. Um, in reference to your investors, Maddie, how like can you tell us a little bit more about your investors? Do you like, other than the crowd fund, right? Like the other investors involved. I mean, like, are there a lot? Are there a few? How big are they?
Yeah,
Like in the decision making process. How beholden to them are you?
absolutely. Excellent question. I can give you pretty specific numbers. There were 20 seed investors that we raised $350,000 from. That was when Terra Luna was collapsing, if you remember those times.
Yeah, that was.
That was mainly from readers of my newsletter, from Quantum Economics newsletter, and followers of mine on Twitter. I put out one tweet that said, "If you have balls of steel and $50,000 in the bank, DM me because I have an opportunity of a lifetime." And that right there, that one tweet brought us home exactly last minute when we needed in order to secure an opportunity. Um, so that's the seed round investors, and then as you know, we merged with Badgerland Mining Company. They'd also had a seed round of $250,000. So that together with both seed rounds is around 600K. And then the crowd fund has already pulled in 450,000. So we're just over $1 million raised right now from investors. Um, we do have a Discord community which is quite active, and obviously I'm in touch with all of our seed investors. They email me quite often. Um, the decision making process, however, I would say like ultimate decision making is done by the board of directors. Doug and I, Oz Sultan, and Justin Kramer. Majority rules, but usually almost all decisions are unanimous because we tease them out to the point where it just becomes obvious what the correct thing to do is. And our guiding light, of course, is what's the best interest of the investors.
And so, why would I, or why did they or anyone ever invest in quantum expeditions? Right? It's, you have the seed investors, and then you're also raising through the crowd fund. And what is the end game, right, for investing? How is anyone ever going to profit from this endeavor?
Yeah, people want to make money. That's why they invest, of course. When you have money at the moment and you want it to turn into more money, I can tell you that meme coins are probably not the way, right? And there are a lot of junk out there, and that that
Name the names, Maddie.
they might be considered
Name the
gambling.
names. You say
But
that wearing a Homer Simpson hat.
yeah, seriously. That's my wife. She's in charge of wardrobe. She chooses everything I wear. But yeah,
Respect.
uh, literally, you know, people want to make money, and we found with our research 3 years ago that mining Bitcoin is a great way to do that if you do it efficiently and consistently, and you make the right decisions according to what's going on in the market. And we did, as Doug mentioned, it was a year and a half that we sat there planning. A lot of that was market forces. It was a bear market. It just wasn't the right time. So we're going to be on the pulse, making sure that we're doing the right things, the right time. Make sure that when the bull market's here, we're maximizing on that. When the bear market is here, we're going to be cutting down a little bit and making sure that happens. And of course, our long term plan 4 or 5 years from now, we'd love to do, an IPO, go public and stuff like that. And of course, there are public mining companies at the moment who are traded on the New York Stock Exchange that have surpassed, $2-3 billion valuations. And for us, right now on the WeFund or on the crowd fund, you're getting in with an evaluation cap of only 33 million. So if we grow from 33 million valuation cap to $1 billion company, I mean that's a 30x on your investment, and then never mind without even considering any sort of dividends on the way.
And what is the timeline for dividends?
That's an excellent question, and the SEC does prohibit us because we're following the guidelines of the SEC for the crowd fund. They prohibit us from promising dividends because that would be like a promise of profits. Um, and we would really like to do that by the end of the year. It's really going to depend on how quickly we can get this gas site up and running. But if we do that in Q4, I think that would be phenomenal. And not just because um, we want the growth and we want the profits, but also we want to show confidence in the business as far as the investors are concerned, but also for us because don't forget our staff are holding equity as well. A lot of our staff is only based on equity compensation, meaning that they're not taking any sort of salary or whatever, and therefore when we pay out investors, we're getting paid ourselves as well.
And if you don't mind me asking, how much of the staff is equity only? Because I know it's a lot.
That's a good question. I don't have that exact figure in front of me, but I would say everybody there's nobody on our staff who's getting paid what they're worth. Actually, that's a fact. Um, Everybody's taking some sort of mix between equity and salary, and I would say that there's probably around uh, maybe half that are on equity only. I don't have the numbers in front of me, so I won't really
All
want to
right.
say.
Yeah, just roughly.
Yeah.
And my last big question on the crowd fund and your kind of trajectory, right, is how much longer is the crowd fund going to run, right? Because I put it up here and on WeFunder right now it says you raised 452,000 from 546 investors, and you can get in with a minimum of 100, $100 investment, which is cool. I mean, that's a very low barrier to entry. A lot of people may not know or realize when it comes to early company investment, you have to be an accredited investor to have that opportunity. So, and the buy-ins are not normally as low as $100 or even close. Um,
We like that WeFunder platform because one of the things that we decided back in 2023 is that we wanted to bring the mining to the individual investor or the individual, if you will. The guys that love and gals that love the Bitcoin, but they can't mine it at home. And Vosk, you know as well as anybody, probably more than most, that how hard it is to actually mine on your own. And so those folks that want to be a part of that, that piece of the ecosystem, the Bitcoin ecosystem, being part of that mining, yeah, you can go buy a mining stock, but right now those mining guys, when you buy their stock, that's diluted among their, plush offices and high, you know, uh, $1 million figure salaries and, all those things.
Core Scientific's jets, private jets. I mean, I just heard. I don't know. I just heard something about it.
Yeah, right. So here, I mean, you're literally jumping in on a company that is our valuation, like Marty says, around 33 million, and we're on our way to a billion. So you can either, take this, ride this wave in, like a tsunami out in the middle of the ocean. It's really little. That's where we are, and then ride it all the way into the $1 billion valuation. And so it brings you an opportunity you can't get anywhere else. And with the crowd fund, I think it's up to $2,500 without proving that you're an accredited investor to the WeFunder platform, and that's why we made the $2,500 mark. Anybody that invests 2,500 or more gets a free ordinal.
Which I think is really cool, right? That's like an NFT on Bitcoin's blockchain. If you don't know,
Yeah, we've got a really I've not seen it done before. We had the Sad Girls, Valerie, design what we call the Quantum Badger, and so the Quantum Badger NF or ordinal. Uh, so not only do you get the PFP, but you also get a high res artwork of the same image. So we've got a really unique situation how we've put that together.
And how much longer is WeFunder going to be open?
It's obviously a limited time, but we don't. So here's one thing: we're almost at 500,000, right? We hit that 500,000, and everybody in that WeFunder at that time will get a free board game. So that's one of what we call stretch goal, and then after that we hit 1 million. Everybody's invited to a rave in the desert. Uh,
I hope you got
so
water.
we'll bring water.
Okay.
Water, music, beverages, and special treats.
Yeah.
Possibly pies.
It's gonna be a
But
party.
to answer your question, the WeFunder at the moment is open until the end of the year. And I mean that might be extended, might not. But as far as we understand, our maximum amount allowed to raise in this round is 1.23 million. So that's for anybody who's considering investing 200,000 or more. I mean, we only you can do one or two of those until the round is closed. So that's where we're at right now.
Okay. And so then the next thing I want to talk about with you guys is going to be, and I know it's really rooted in the energy, and we already kind of discussed that. But what do you think about the future of Bitcoin mining hardware? Because in particular, we've seen a insane amount of miner releases over the last year, especially altcoin mining. But I know we're not kind of diving into, or Quantum's not diving into altcoin mining currently. But even on the Bitcoin mining front, because a year ago the S21 didn't exist, right? Like the S19K Pro was like this late generation kind of last hurrah hero of the S19 series. And now we've got S21 Pros and S21 XPs that are, the it's shocking that a year ago, right, you could there were still miners being produced with about 30 joules per terahash or watts per terahash of efficiency, right? And now these new miners are twice as efficient. That's an astronomical efficiency leap. I mean, that would be like your car is going from 20 mpgs to 40 mpgs or 40 to 80, whatever. Like, I mean, it's twice as much. And that is having a massive impact on old hardware that is going to start struggling to compete against this newer hardware.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And how are you going to navigate that?
So I have an old friend who told me about this printer that he'd invented, right? Which was so much better than anything on the market, right? And he went to HP and he goes, "Look at this. I'm gonna give me $10 million for it or whatever, so that I can retire and stuff, because otherwise I'm gonna blow you guys out of the water." And they're like, "Well, we'll give you $500,000 for it." He's like, "What? Are you kidding me? That doesn't make any sense. Like, this printer is so clearly better, and I'm just gonna take you guys out of business." And they took him down into the basement and they showed him their latest model, which was 10 times better than his model. And they said, "Look, we've got this already. We can produce it, mass produce it, and we'll put you out of business as soon as you release yours. It's not a problem for us. But our current models are selling fine, so we have no reason to do that. So we'll give you $500,000 in order to save ourselves that headache and continue selling these old models that are not as great." And I believe that when it comes to like Bitmain and those that are creating these, I mean they can produce more efficiency, but why would they want to? They would much rather keep it on a steady incline, and make sure that people within the industry are profitable, because what happens if they start ruining miners? They're basically messing over their customers. They're not getting any repeat business. So it's in their best interest to make sure that when somebody buys a machine, that it lasts 4 or 5 years before they have to replace it, right? And I think that that's what they're going to continue to do as long as they can. Whether a new company comes out and makes something better, maybe they'll be able to. But by the time they get brand recognition and mass production, we'll be in that line as well. Making sure that we're getting ours. But I think that the hash rate of Bitcoin by now has grown so much that it takes a lot more to move the needle, even with technological innovation, even with with mass production. Um, I believe that even if things do start to suddenly accelerate, okay, so the machines will be able to pay themselves off. They tend to pay themselves off after a year. I think on our gas prices, we'll be able to shorten that significantly. So the machines will, even if there's an improvement in technological innovation, maybe it'll take down to 3 years instead of 5 years for a machine to be moded out. But that's still fine. We're still making plenty of money on that.
No, that's a good point, and it seems like more than ever that these minor manufacturing companies, they just seem to just kind of get together and be like, all right, guys, what do you think about maybe like post halving we release the new models? And they're like, yeah, I think that's a pretty good idea, because the miners ran up to the halving, and then like the halving hit and profits are lower, and then they're like, hey, but by the way, we've got this way better model now, and with this model you can be profitable post halving at a much worse electricity rate. Or like if you followed AlphaPex and their DG1 Dogecoin miner, so Bitmain's been reigning supreme with the Antminer L7 for years now, and then AlphaPex shows up and like, we've got a better miner than them, and then Bitmain's like, actually no you don't, we actually already had the L9 and it's better than your miner. We just weren't going to release it because why would we? And like, it just really lines up with your story. I feel like they would have been like, hey, AlphaPex, you want 500,000, you just throw that shit away. uh,
Yeah, seriously.
uh, so it's just crazy because like they showed
No,
up out of
that's
nowhere and they were top dog for like a month, and then Bitman was like, actually we got way better stuff, and it's a very cutthroat business.
so.
What are you gonna say, Doug?
It is. Back in the 80s and 90s, when I was in technology, I was doing wholesale hardware from floppy drives, hard drives, monitors, modems, the whole nine yards. And then we got into building our own computers. And I remember when Seagate would come out with their latest, and then Western Digital would come right behind them. Then Rodyne came out, and K-Lock. If you want, those are all hard drive manufacturers. Some of them are not around anymore, but so you could see how the technology would advance. And I would say that when you look at technology in the mining industry, it's still a computer, right? And so it's always going to advance, just like our cell phones, right? Uh, there's more technology in this little bitty thing that I can hold in my hand than what was took the super shuttle out into outer space years ago. So it's always going to advance, and so you've got to be mindful and be ready to make the moves as technology does change. And we have a technology guy that he's uh, managed, several hundred, like 800 miners all at one time in one location. So he knows what it takes. He knows what 5969 uptime and all this, things that I don't even know about in technology. He's really, really good. And so when we have, an issue with electricity or network or something like that, he can literally get online and get us back up and running in no time. So understanding all of those nuances, I think, is very, very important. We've got a pretty sharp little team in different areas.
Yeah, it's beyond the board of directors who are all very experienced, and we've got another several people who are absolutely firecrackers and have a lot of knowledge and experience. So we're and we've structured it in a way that we're able to gain that knowledge and insight, and then of course advisors like yourself and Andy and Action and James Pelton. So we've got a lot of very good people working for us, a very strong team, and there's no reason that we shouldn't be able to scale to where other people have done before us.
I gotta say, as I kind of like sit here and internalize like everything we've been talking about today, like what you opened with the focus on energy is like it's really what hits home with mining. Like when you want to move behind a hobby level endeavor, but even at a hobby level, it can be like your advantage, because one thing, a lot of people ask me, I'm fortunate to have the YouTube channel, and we got some subscribers, whatever. We make a lot of videos, right? And so we get some comments along the way. Some people say that my haircut sucks. Some people ask me what should they get into mining, and like what endeavor, or how to go about that endeavor. And it's like right now, if I was getting into mining and I had, say like 10-ish grand, I would be looking at solar, right? Because you could do a small scale solar setup, right? And that's all rooted in like your energy argument, different, way to go about it. But let's say mining doesn't work out for whatever reason, which I don't even think that that's worth bringing up too much anymore, because I think we finally reached the point that people don't think Bitcoin's going away. And if you don't think Bitcoin's going away, then Bitcoin mining will always be here in some form or fashion. But if you get sick of mining or whatever, like you still have your solar array, like you're still going to be using electricity every day in your house, right? So it has that benefit. It's not something that you could scale and become, the next big, you know, mining farm out of your house. Like, hey, this is my house mining, right? And we're scaling to be this big project. But what you can do is, instead of paying a residential electricity rate, you could realistically run a few miners. Like setting up the infrastructure to power one miner, 24/7 isn't unattainable to the average person. And it can help decentralize mining, and it's more accessible than ever before. Like I could go on YouTube and learn how to make my own, like deploy my own solar setup. I could sync an application with my electric provider and grid tie it, and now I don't even have to do the battery aspect. And then even if you just offset your power cost, right, you could effectively bring your rate from 10 cents to effectively 4 or 5 cents. And it's just these weren't really the conversations that were being had too much years ago. It was kind of like it was really like an arms race to get a bunch of miners, right? And to understand it and to be bold enough to be in it and to even know how to do it, right? Years ago things were much more difficult, right? And then it started to be a mad dash around the world. Where can we find cheap power? Then you start to realize we can't trust a lot of places, so maybe cheap power over here isn't actually worth it. uh, and then if you guys remember the huge like Washington boom, where everyone's like, okay, it's hydro time now. That's where we're going to get the best rates. Um, and over the last couple of years, it's Texas that's really kind of become it. If it's not already, it's on track to be the just capital of like Bitcoin mining throughout the world, with the opportunities down there. I mean, there's pros and cons to it in Texas, as you guys obviously know. But beyond the grid, right, you
Mostly
have,
pros.
yeah, mostly pros. And then beyond the grid, you can go the natural gas route, among other things. And it's weird how Bitcoin mining, when you really start to break it down further and further, is it's in a way it's like energy arbitrage, right? It's like, where can we go get the best, you know, electricity cost here effectively, and kind of build from that.
There's
Absolutely, yeah. And our mission here is to really be there for the guys who don't have the technical acumen, to say, okay, let me build a solar array and figure out how to do that. And, we just basically, instead of buying the equipment, which, they may see a return on or may not see a return on, they're actually buying a piece of the company. So as the company grows, their share of the company is going to grow as well. And that's really the idea of the crowdfund, and basically everything we're doing with Quantum Expeditions as well.
I think the nice part about like kind of what you offer versus the example I portrayed is you can only take the I'm going to make my own solar at home mining so far before you just start adding another service or another location or whatever, and that's not the same thing anymore, right? So that's a interesting, and it's an interesting route to a degree. Whereas say with you, I could put whatever cash I have in, and then hopefully ride it to the upside, and then you have, it really comes back to like economies of scale, right? It's just what you're going to be able to do with a million is going to probably blow away what, say, like I could do with 10,000 or 100,000. Even just miner prices, as the price per miner you get for one versus 100, I mean, they are a world apart in this market.
Yeah, they are. One of the things uh, many people miss that Bitcoin mining brings to the grid, and I think that's why Texas has been so welcoming to the Bitcoin mining industry, is we bring grid stabilization. Because as you know, that as in the grid, when we're told that there's less power out there and we need to start pulling back, we can shut some of the machines off, right? Use less electricity. And so if it gets to the point that, like here in Texas in the summertime, we're hitting, record high consumption of electricity with, all the new businesses and people moving to Texas, that there's times where there's very little delta between production and consumption. And if it gets too tight, then they ask for the miners to shut back. And that's what we do. We can turn off and allow that delta to get back there to keep, grandma at the retirement home or the hospitals, the houses, make sure everybody is safe before we're sitting there, stacking sats. So grid stabilization is a big component. Demand response is another program that these electric companies can sign up with Bitcoin mining companies. And then you add also the idle asset utilization. And so Texas has more wind turbines than any other state in the country. And so there's times that there's so much wind and so much generation, and it's nice, and like in the spring and fall here in Texas, we may have more electricity than what we're using. And now the delta is huge. Well, then they got to start turning wind turbines off. They got to start parking them, and they don't want to do that. That's called an idle asset. So if these companies can keep their assets generating income, that's where they make more money. If the power generator and the grid system's making more money, that's where they can keep the growth and uh, help improve the quality of the grid by generating more capital. So
And a lot of what you're describing, Doug, right? That's curtailment. And
curtailment's another word for it. Yeah.
are they compensating you for the downtime?
Yeah, so it depends on your agreement. We heard Marathon last year in a certain month made more money selling their electricity back to the grid as opposed to mining. And so, we're not big enough to have that type of agreement with the power company. But yeah, those agreements are out there. So if to
But
be
as
paid,
we go off grid, also we're not going to have to deal with any of that because there's we're literally out in the middle of nowhere getting gas that is not going anywhere other than to power our machines. So even if there's grandma in the retirement home in the big city, she's not getting any of that power anyway. So we'll just keep mining.
right. Yeah, that was more towards the grid. Now with the off-grid solution that we're building up now is what we're doing is with the oil and gas companies, if they don't have anywhere to put their gas, then what they do is they flare it, burn it off with a pipe, come straight up. But what has been proven is that we can lower the emissions by channeling that gas through a generator. That lowers emissions compared to just burning it off in a flare. So we can help in the environment side of the world by Bitcoin mining as well on the off grid solutions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess just one thing that kind of blows my mind are the agreements to be paid for curtailment. And I kind of understand it as a consumer, but when you really think about what's happening here, it kind of sounds like SBF started an electric company where it's like you're supposed to be buying my electricity, but I'm actually going to pay you and not send it to you. And it's just like, man, how do these numbers line up long term, especially
Yeah.
for a big operation like that?
So right, there's that missing piece of the agreement, and that is if when when electricity gets that tight, on available electricity when we're running low, if you will, then the pricing, because electricity prices go up and down too, right? And so what happens is if that is the case, the price of electricity is going up. And so there is that difference between how much it's selling for and how much or how much the retail price is, and then how much the Bitcoin mining company is selling it for. So if they're buying it for 3 cents, but they can sell it for 6, right? But the electric company is selling it for 12 and 15. It's still not. It's beneficial for everybody at the end of the day.
Yeah. No, no, absolutely. And I'm glad you explained it like that because when you hear like just a piece of it, you're just kind of like, how does that make sense? Right.
Right? Yeah.
It's just like, yeah, I'm running this business and I'm just going to pay you not to come here. All right. That's how much I don't like you. So here, see you later. Yeah. You're
Yeah.
not
There's
invited to the desert rave.
and then there's
So,
some right. Let's do it. Woo, woo. So, like any other commodity, it can be hedged, right? And so you can hedge the price of your electricity as well. And there are companies, the larger companies, that do that. Just like we do in the oil and gas industry, oil and gas can be hedged as well.
as we kind of approach the end of this video here today, I want to kind of just do a couple quick questions. We do like quicker answers on them with you guys. So kind of like in your Bitcoin mining endeavor, right? Like what has been the most challenging thing that you've run into? Maybe like surprisingly challenging.
People.
Yeah.
Well said. That's my
People. I
favorite part
mean,
about miners.
some
The
people
computers.
like they're really like, as soon as people understand what you're trying to do and they want to be part of it, um, there is no this is unmatched potential, right? There's like they can be with you, and like we said, many people just on equity because they realize what we're trying to do, and they want to be a part of that, and they want to realize they want to realize the profit potential of what we're aiming for. And then there's some people who they're doing really well in the beginning, and then they kind of fall off. Or we had one guy just kind of totally snap on us and go crazy, and he's no longer with us. And that could be also you're paying somebody a salary, and suddenly they're just not performing. So there isn't any kind of direct correlation either that you can say, okay, well, there's a fix. Throw money at the problem, and we're good. And it's not like that. It really is every single person, and um, just making sure that they have everything that they needed, both in their career and in their personal lives, to perform optimally. Because the machines, they're very straightforward. They got their electricity, they got their airflow, they're good to go. But people are a lot more complicated. So that's been a challenge for us throughout the short history of the company. But I would say that we're in most cases, knocking it out of the park.
And Maddie, how do you deal with someone who has equity that either leaves the company or MIA or snaps? You kind of like need to get rid of them. Is that just they just along for a free ride at that point, or do you try to buy them out, or that's difficult to navigate?
Yeah.
It's called
S-
vesting.
s- uh, again, it's vesting, like Doug says. So you have the long vesting schedule, and then actually the previous one that I mentioned that snapped, that was like 2 years ago. Um, it was an incredible story. I'll tell you offline sometime. But he actually walked away with zero. He walked away with like nothing from the company, and because he signed one thing and didn't sign another thing that were two pieces of paper that he was supposed to sign, and it just magically happened. It was like literally divine intervention that he's out of the company now for 2 years, and he's got nothing. But I would say, like, if there's somebody in the company now who's on an equity only and they're not really performing properly, so we'll give them a call and say, hey, this is what we got to do. And then also, I think also past work might play into that, and public work might play into that. So it can be complicated, but I'll say there isn't a cookie cutter formula for it. You just kind of have to make the right decision at the right time, given the circumstances.
Yeah, absolutely. So on the flip side, maybe more positive thing is what's something that's kind of just gone great, whether it's on the mining front or the business front or whatever. And anything you're like, man, I thought that was gonna suck, but like, with that we feel lucky or just fortunate or that was easy.
We got really, I mean, some people say luck is made, right? And
Agreed.
Marty said something a minute ago. He said divine intervention. And ever since we got the power purchase agreement, a couple years ago, uh, we won the agreement over some very, very large companies. And it was just because it wasn't what we knew, it's who we knew. Um, so from the power purchase agreement to, buying miners at the very bottom of the market to getting a location that we didn't have to put a penny into infrastructure. This guy had a container with a transformer and he was using it for storage because he outgrew it. And he was, doing 10, 20 megawatt locations now. Uh, so from there, and then the people that have come on board, on our website, we've got Trent Stevens, who's mined all over the country. So he knows, how to plug in a miner. And then he brought in our network wizard that knows how to look at a network and how to plug it in and how to manage and that whole network system and miners and wallets and all those things. So all along the way, we've had divine intervention. Uh, as I call it, Matty calls it. Some people call it luck. And that's fine. At the end of the day, we've been very, very fortunate how things have come together and how we've been able to grow and make a profitable company early on from the get go.
Yeah, I would say like the Badgerland merger also.
Oh,
It
yeah.
happened exactly at the right time, at the right place, with the right people. If that hadn't happened, we would not be where we are right now. I don't think. And e- every single deployment, every single purchase we've made, like I mentioned, also the S19s that we purchased at the exact bottom of the market. I mean, you can call it skill, right, in kind of timing the market and understanding where things are going, or skating to where the puck is going or whatever. But also at the same time, you have to say, well, to get deployed, within 2 weeks, right? Actually, within a day. I think from the time that the machines landed on the ground, we were deployed within 48 hours completely. And those type of things, like, they happen because you have a great team and great skill. But also you have to recognize that even with a great team and a great skill, sometimes there are still delays, and that's what people have been telling us, throughout our short history. So I would say that every single time that we add machines, every time that we're looking at different deals, some deals fall through, and then you go, oh wow, I'm so glad that fell through, because then you realize that, oh, that would have been actually terrible for us had we gone ahead with it. So yeah, I think that it happens on a daily basis around here.
And then the one other thing I want to ask is what is it like building a digital, like we'll call it like maybe like a digital community, right? Like this era is so different than like
Yeah.
years ago. And then you're in like a forward thinking sector, right? And so, you're raising hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of dollars by the end of your story here. All right. And you've got Discord server going. You got everyone hiding with their NFT Web3 avatar in there. Like it's different these days, right? And
Yeah.
like, what is that like, and how do you communicate with them and kind of make them feel like part of it and engaged? Regular updates. What do you do, on that front?
Marty, if I may, I want to go
Go
back
ahead.
to 3 years ago as an oil and gas guy. Marty and Oz called me up and they're looking for gas. And when they called me, I was like 6 months experience of having a Coinbase wallet and buying, junk coins all over the place and just, trying to get my feet wet. But what happened when I joined the quantum community, if you will, and then started going these spaces. And then I'm realizing, well, because in the oil and gas industry, it's more of a competition, right? But not friendly. And whereas in this Web3 community, we're finding people wanting to help each other, give a hand up to each other. And hey, this worked for me. If you're struggling with this, give me a call. I'll help you out. And so this whole Web3 community was like, we call it a community because we're really trying to help each other. Just like you, I mean, you're a miner and here you are helping miners, right? And so we're trying to help each other, give each other a hand up. If there's something I can help you with and something you can help me with, and then we all grow. Because at the end of the day, mining isn't just mining. Mining is also transactions, right? So there's no transaction done without a miner in Bitcoin. So there's more to it than that. And so now here I am 3 years later, and I've got a whole plethora of NFTs. I finally, got my what is it? My Bitcoin wallet, so I can start getting my ordinals and things of that nature going. And last year in 23, when we decided to do crowdfunding, that's what made sense. It's like, hey, we should bring this to the community because they can't do it anymore like they used to. You can't just open up a notebook computer like 10 years ago and just start mining. You've got to have, infrastructure. You got to have knowledge and networking and all this other thing that comes along with it. So what we've done is we're trying to bring that whole community an opportunity of being part of that mining that you can't do at home. Most people can't.
And to answer your question, we do have a very rigid communication schedule actually. So we have the Discord server. Anybody can come into the Discord server at any time of day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and ask questions. And we have people like yourself and Andy and James who are there as well, who can answer questions. And our team 24 hours a day. You can open a ticket if it's something more private in the Discord. And then, of course, as far as communication is concerned, we have a weekly Twitter space where everybody's invited. We talk about, things from like history of Bitcoin mining to Bitcoin mining and politics on a weekly basis on Twitter spaces, and that's public. Anybody can attend. And then we have a monthly newsletter, which we send out every month, giving you updates on what's happening on the mining side, giving you updates on what's happening on the crowdfund side. And then we have on a quarterly basis a webinar, which is for investors to come in and see, more long-term progress and future goals.
Incredible.
Yep.
Well, I really appreciate your time. I mean, we're kind of breaching that 1 hour mark, so I want to be respectful. I know, Maddie, I don't know if I'm allowed to share this. You said you took this, you're taking a little time off, but here you are. The grind never stops. So even on vacation.
No.
No, man, it's good. I appreciate that. No, I'm in California at the moment visiting my family, but I'll be here for another month and a half. So I'm not putting anything on hold to do that. Just not maybe working as hard as I usually do when I'm at home in front of my four monitors.
I feel that. So Maddie, Doug, I really appreciate it. Thanks for the time.
Thank you,
It's a pleasure
Voss.
having you on here. And make sure to check out Quantum Expeditions. If you like what these guys are doing, you're vibing with them, make sure to subscribe to the VoskCoin YouTube channel if you haven't already. And see you on the next one.
You bet. Thank you.
Good to see you, man. Speak soon.